Following the river found in the Windward Plains will lead you to the verdant Scarlet Forest, with its towering trees and abundant water. This land experiences an inclemency known as the Downpour, a torrential rainstorm that floods the surrounding area. Monster Hunter Wilds' Scarlet Forest is a gorgeous landscape teeming with life, but of particular interest to me are the number of carnivorous plants represented there. The constant aggressive rainstorms of the Scarlet Forest that cause widespread flooding make it a harsh environment for some plants to live in. Uniquely adapted to such conditions, carnivorous plants have found a way to gain nutrients through predation, and in real life are often found in watery places like bogs. While the plants in the game do in some cases have a bit of a fantasy twist to them, many of those represented in the Scarlet Forest look remarkably like species found in the real world. Today I'd like to go over a few of them and discuss how they fit into the Scarlet Forest ecosystem. Perhaps most notable in the Scarlet Forest, for you only need to look at the forest floor, are the Sarracenias, otherwise known as American pitcher plants or trumpet pitcher plants. In reality, these plants are only generally found on the east coast of the United States, Texas, the Great Lakes region, and in southeastern Canada. The vast majority of them, however, grow in the southeastern part of the U.S., where the climate is more to their taste. Because they often live in areas with low nutrient soils, Sarracenia have come up with a fairly simplistic but very effective predation method. The leaves of the Sarracenia create a pitcher shape used to trap insects, which they draw in with the nectar they produce at the rim of the pitcher. Insects then tend to slip and fall into the pool at the bottom, where they die and are digested with enzymes secreted in the cup of the pitcher. The cap-like covering of the pitcher helps to prevent rainwater from overfilling the pitcher and ensures that the potency of the digestive enzymes are at their peak. Though don't think that these plants wish to exterminate all insects. They need pollinators to be able to safely travel from flower to flower to help the species flourish. As such, Sarracenia have evolved to have their flowers grow on tall stalks to ensure that pollinators are able to complete their mission without being in danger of tumbling down a pitcher and becoming an unfortunate casualty. Interestingly, in the Scarlet Forest, the mammalian Mimiphyta disguises itself as a Sarracenia flower in order to hide from larger predators, and also catch myriads, a species of brightly colored butterflies that seem to be particular to Sarracenia flowers. If you walk near a Sarracenia patch, be sure to check to see if you can spot any of these little guys. The first Sarracenia species I want to introduce in wilds is flava. These pitchers are known for their yellow coloring, red veining, slight frill at the top, and their yellow flowers. The upper sections of the pitcher add insult to injury by secreting a waxy substance that makes it more likely for insects to tumble down into the depths. Next up, I'd like you to meet Sarracenia leucophylla, a species well known for the splash of white at the top of the pitchers with red veining. They're one of the showier species of Sarracenia, as their coloring makes them stand out in the sun, plus their hoods are extra frilly. With darker red flowers to match their veins, I've always found these ones a real joy to grow. As a species with large variations in height, they also end up being a prime prey for poachers, as the larger pitchers are quite striking. Interestingly, despite the Scarlet Forest feeling more like a tropical location, the devs chose to include what looks like the slightly more cold-hardy Sarracenia purpurea. Out of all the Sarracenia, only purpurea is capable of surviving in cold, temperate climates. This species tends to grow lower to the ground in rosette-like clusters. These plants do most of their prey catching in the warmer months when the leaves fill with rainwater. Interestingly, while new pitchers do produce digestive enzymes, much of the breakdown of prey comes from a symbiotic relationship with certain species of mosquitoes and midge that live within the pitchers. Purpurea pitchers have also been known to catch juvenile eastern newts in Canada that often die as the pitchers are heated by the sun, rather than the traditional drowning that befalls insects. Perhaps a happy accident for the pitchers, but the plants greatly benefit from the more nutrient-dense food source. The final American pitcher plant I'd like to introduce was one I was perhaps the most excited to see in the Scarlet Forest, Sarracenia minor, a lesser-known species, which isn't seen as much in cultivation. This species is also called the hooded pitcher plant because of how its pitcher is domed at the top, and it has a much narrower opening than some of its cousins. The only species in the genus to use this style of pitcher, the base of the pitcher tends to be primarily green, moving into a reddish ombre at the top. They have little white patches or dots at the top that allow light to enter the pitcher, and which are also believed to help encourage insects to move further down the pitcher toward the treacherous water and enzymes within. Ants, in particular, seem to favor Sarracenia minor and appear to be the primary prey. The leaf luggers within the Scarlet Forest will have to watch out. Next, we're moving off the forest floor and up into the trees to explore the tropical pitcher plants that hang from above. There are around 170 species in the Nepenthes genus, though Borneo, Sumatra, and the Philippines see the greatest diversity. They have a singular taproot and are often found climbing other structures. Unlike the Sarracenia, where pitchers are the whole leaf structure, Nepenthes have what appear to be a more normal-looking leaf with a slim stem protruding from the tip on which the cup-like pitcher forms. Nepenthes pitchers contain a rather sticky fluid, which helps to keep insects trapped in the pitcher, even those with wings which might otherwise fly away. Even when diluted with a good amount of rainwater, the effectiveness of the trap remains high. Like their North American counterparts, tropical pitcher plants often have waxy surfaces at the top of the pitcher to prevent prey from climbing back out, while lower parts of the trap have glands to absorb nutrients from the insect soup they create. In the Scarlet Forest, we can see a few different tropical pitcher plants that seem to be inspired by real-life varieties. Most of the ones growing on trees I could spot seem to be a mix of Nepenthes alata and Nepenthes boschiana pitchers, often growing from what appears to be the same plant. Alata has a high rate of polymorphism, which means that different individuals within the species can look different in coloring to one another. In this case, the shape of the pitchers and the red to greenish-yellow coloring is what had me thinking they might have been a model for these Scarlet Forest varieties. The more mottled pitchers, with a darker lip, are more reminiscent of the species Nepenthes boschiana, as that species is known for that particular coloring and more aggressively sloped pitcher mouth. Next time you're hunting in the Scarlet Forest, be sure to take a look up into the trees, and maybe you'll see some of these carnivorous friends for yourself. There is another tropical pitcher plant in Monster Hunter with a bit of a functional twist, the poison cup. The pitchers on the poison cup appear to have been inspired by Nepenthes ampullaria, a squat, cup-shaped pitcher with a bright green peristome, or mouth of the pitcher. Interestingly, Nepenthes ampullaria largely feeds on leaf litter rather than on insects like most of the rest of its genus. It could perhaps be the reason that they are filled with poison in Monster Hunter, perhaps a nod to all the leaf litter from various plants within the forest collecting into one toxic soup within the pitchers of the poison cup. Alternatively, over 59 species have been found to reside within ampullaria pitchers, so perhaps the concept of poison in Monster Hunter comes from the idea that it's a product of a critter that makes the poison cup their home. Our final carnivorous plant is perhaps the most recognizable one, the Venus flytrap. Dionea muscipula only lives in a particular wetland region in North and South Carolina in the U.S., though sadly, because of their fame, they are often at risk from poachers. There are a number of hybrids in cultivation, but only the one species exists in the wild. In the Scarlet Forest, the traps on these plants are giant, literally. And although I'm sure it was probably incidental, the coloring and shape of the pitchers is extremely reminiscent of a very particular hybrid called BCP clone X11. Unlike pitcher plants, which hope that prey fall down and drown in their watery depths, Venus flytraps have a much more active trap mechanism, which is triggered by hairs inside of the trap. Movement from an insect, or, in the case of Monster Hunter, dapper wings or dazzle wings, cause the trigger hairs to signal to the plant that it's time to close the trap. Once the two halves of the trap connect, they will seal themselves to create a stomach in which it can secrete digestive enzymes. Although the digestive cycle in the Scarlet Forest variety is noticeably faster, in reality it takes about 10 days for prey to be digested, at which point the trap reopens and all that is left is the husk of chitin. The enzymes used by the Scarlet Forest variety must be much stronger, though, as not a bit of its prey is left behind upon reopening. All of these carnivorous plants in real life grow in regions that are largely waterlogged, tropical rainforests, bogs, and canebrakes, making them perfectly suited to weather the aggressive storms of the downpour. The Scarlet Forest's inclemency period sees the region completely drenched. If you look down at the forest floor, you'll see how much water pools, which for many plants would be disastrous. The carnivorous plants, however, are thriving. Although you won't necessarily see them predating much, as insects and other creatures are largely holed up during the storms, they seem perfectly comfortable in the additional showers. It makes sense that the carnivorous plants seem to be present in large patches of the forest when the environment is much harder for many other plants to thrive in. Just be sure to keep an eye on your favorite smaller creatures that might need rescuing if they take a tumble. And that concludes our little exploration of the carnivorous plants of the Scarlet Forest. I hope you enjoyed investigating them as much as I did. If you've noticed any other similarities between these fantasy plants and those in the real world, I'd love to hear about them. I'd love to spend some more time exploring the world of Monster Hunter together, so if you have any other ideas you'd like me to explore, I'm all ears. As always, cottagers, thank you for joining me today. If you'd like to come hunt with me, I'll see you on Sundays. My charge blade and I are always ready.